Let's talk about something that feels like it splits you open when the divine masculine walks away. It's a wound so deep, it doesn't just hurt your heart, it shakes your soul. If you're on the twin flame path, you've likely experienced that ache. The silence, the distance, the unanswered messages, the cold withdrawal that leaves you standing in disbelief. This person, this mirror of your soul, suddenly becomes unreachable. You search for answers. You wonder what went wrong. You question your worth. You beg the universe for a sign, for a reason for relief. And when you find nothing but silence, the pain turns into confusion and eventually becomes a storm of inner turmoil. But here's the thing. The reason behind the divine masculine's abandonment is not what most people think. It's not because you weren't enough. It's not because he doesn't care. It's not even because he's lost interest or found someone else. The truth is far more layered, spiritual, and emotionally complex than that. The twin flame journey is not a conventional relationship. It's not about dates, texts, gifts, or perfect compatibility. It's a sacred process that is divinely designed to crack open your illusions, strip away your conditioning, and force you to rise into your highest self. Abandonment is not a punishment. It's not a sign of failure. It's an initiation. And when the divine masculine leaves, he's not just walking away from you, he's walking into his own shadows, into his own transformation. And as painful as it is, that journey is essential. What we want to do here is guide you through a deeper understanding of why this happens. Let's begin. Number 1, he abandons you because he feels unworthy of your love. At the core of many divine masculines is a hidden wound of unworthiness. This is not something that's always obvious on the surface. In fact, many divine masculines present themselves as confident, even distant or aloof. But beneath that exterior is often a boy who never felt seen. A man who learned to survive by shutting down emotionally. Someone who, when met with the intensity of divine feminine love, feels completely exposed. When he meets you, his twin flame, he's not just meeting a partner. He's meeting the deepest reflection of his own soul. That kind of intimacy doesn't feel soft or comforting at first. It feels threatening. You see into him in a way no one ever has. You love him not for who he pretends to be, but for who he truly is. And for someone who has spent his life hiding or controlling how much of himself he shows, that kind of love is terrifying. He starts to feel like he doesn't deserve it. He wonders what you see in him. He starts comparing himself to you, your light, your heart, your wisdom. He puts you on a pedestal without realizing it, and the more you love him, the more he feels like he's bound to disappoint you. So rather than stay and risk that pain, he leaves. He chooses what feels safer. Not because he wants to hurt you, but because in his mind, it's the only way to protect you from himself. Now, this doesn't mean you should shrink or hide your light to make him feel comfortable. Your light is not the problem. His sense of worth is, and that's not something you can fix for him. That's his journey to walk. But understanding this can help you detach from the idea that his leaving was personal. It wasn't. It was internal. It wasn't about your love being too much. It was about his belief that he couldn't receive it. In time, this wound can heal. As he faces himself, grows through the separation, and begins to reconnect with his own divinity, he may come to realize that he was always enough. But that journey starts with his absence, with the mirror of loss. With the space to feel everything he's avoided for so long, your love triggered his awakening, but he has to rise to meet it. And sometimes that means walking away first. Number 2, he abandons you because he is awakening in chaos. Awakening is not a peaceful process, especially for the divine masculine, who has been conditioned for generations to suppress emotion, ignore intuition, and equate vulnerability with weakness. When he meets his divine feminine, it's as if the universe lights a fire under every part of his being that has been frozen or asleep. Suddenly, he starts to feel everything. He becomes aware of how unhappy he truly is. He realizes that the life he built, his career, his relationships, his identity, might not be authentic. It's overwhelming. And instead of staying to process all that with you, he panics. He doesn't have the tools to deal with that level of emotional intensity. He was taught to push through pain, to stay logical, to be strong. But spiritual awakening doesn't care about logic. It breaks through the mental defenses and dives into the soul. And when that starts happening, his instinct is to run. Not just from you, but from the mirror you hold up, from the truth he's not ready to face. Abandonment, in this case, is not an act of cruelty. It's a cry for space, a desperate need to disconnect from what's triggering the inner earthquake. He's not rejecting your love. He's being forced to reevaluate his entire reality. And that's not a graceful process. It's chaotic. It's painful. It strips him down to his core. You, the divine feminine, often awaken first. You've already gone through your tower moment. You've been through the fire and come out stronger. So when he starts to unravel, it can be hard to watch. You want to help, you want to hold space, but this is not a journey he can bypass by leaning on you. He has to fall apart. He has to grieve. He has to rebuild. Alone. What you can do is honor the chaos. Don't take his silence personally. Don't try to drag him back before he's ready. Let him move through the storm in his own way. Because as frightening as it is, the chaos is sacred. It's where the real transformation happens. And when he returns, he will be someone who chose truth over comfort. Someone who has faced his darkness and found his light. And that is the version of him who can love you fully. Number 3, he abandons you because he's still attached to the 3D world. The divine masculine often has deep attachments to the material world: status, success, image, stability. And that's not wrong. In fact, those qualities can serve him when balanced. But the twin flame connection asks for more. It asks for surrender. It demands authenticity. And that kind of soul-level intimacy doesn't always fit neatly into a picture-perfect life. When you come into his world, you challenge everything he thought he wanted. Suddenly, the job that once gave him purpose feels meaningless. The relationship that seemed safe starts to feel like a cage. The version of life he's worked so hard to build begins to crumble under the weight of truth, and he doesn't know how to let go. So instead of embracing the unknown, he clings to what he knows. He chooses comfort over growth. Abandoning you is not necessarily about not loving you. It's about choosing familiarity over the wildness of the soul. The divine masculine often feels torn between two worlds, the spiritual and the material. One calls him higher, the other grounds him in what's predictable. And if he hasn't yet healed the fear of instability, he'll choose the life that feels safer, even if it's not fulfilling. This can be one of the most painful reasons for separation. You see his potential, you feel the love, you know what you could build together, but he doesn't yet believe he can have both, spiritual depth and material success, love and freedom, growth and security. So he chooses what feels more solid. And you're left holding the ache of what could have been. But here's what's important to remember. The soul never forgets. Even if he chooses the 3D world now, the seed of awakening has already been planted. The pull of the connection will never fully go away. And over time, as the illusions of success begin to fade, he may realize that everything he was chasing was just a distraction from what he truly wanted. The real work is not in convincing him. It's in staying rooted in your own truth and letting your energy speak for itself. When you hold your own light, you become the beacon. And one day, when he's ready to walk away from the world that no longer feeds his soul, he'll find his way back. Not because you waited, but because you trusted the process. Number 4, he abandons you because he's afraid of losing control. Control is a form of safety for the unhealed divine masculine. It gives him the illusion of power in a world that often feels chaotic. He likes to know where he stands, what the rules are, and how to keep his emotions in check. He may have been taught from an early age to manage, suppress, or intellectualize his feelings. Vulnerability isn't just uncomfortable for him, it feels dangerous. And that's exactly what the twin flame connection demands: complete emotional nakedness. When you come into his life, you don't play by the usual rules. Your presence activates something he can't understand or manage with logic. He feels drawn to you in a way that bypasses his usual defenses. His heart starts opening in ways he didn't know were possible. And that's terrifying for someone who has built his entire identity around staying in control. Falling in love with you doesn't feel like a gentle process. It feels like surrendering to a force greater than himself. It threatens the false sense of control he's always held onto. And in response, he does the only thing he knows how to do: pull away. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he feels powerless. And rather than face the vulnerability head on, he tries to take back control the only way he knows how: by leaving. To him, walking away feels like reclaiming order in a world that suddenly stopped making sense. But of course, it's only a temporary fix, because no matter how far he runs, the connection follows him. The emotions don't go away. The truth still lingers in the silence, and eventually, the illusion of control starts to crack. The key here is to not chase him when he pulls away. That only reinforces his fear that he's losing his grip. Let him retreat. Let him sit with the discomfort, because it's in that discomfort that his real awakening begins. He starts to realize that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. That losing control isn't the end, it's the beginning of real love. You, as the divine feminine, hold a sacred role in this process, not by fixing or explaining, but by embodying the very surrender he's afraid of. When you stop trying to control the outcome and start trusting the journey, you show him a new way to be. You become the example, the safe space, the anchor. And when he's ready, he'll find the courage to meet you there. Not in control, but in love. Number 5, he abandons you because he's projecting his inner conflict onto you. The divine masculine, when unhealed, often struggles to differentiate between his internal chaos and external reality. When something triggers pain inside him, whether it's guilt, fear, shame, or doubt, he doesn't always know how to sit with it and process it. Instead, he projects it outward, and because you're the closest mirror to his soul, you become the target of those projections. He may start to see you as the problem. He might convince himself that you're too intense, too emotional, too spiritual, too demanding. But none of those things are truly about you. They're reflections of what he hasn't yet accepted within himself. Your light brings up all the parts of him that he's buried. Your love brings up all the fears he's tried to suppress. And instead of facing those shadows, he blames the light for exposing them. This is why he sometimes pulls away with no warning. It's not that you changed, it's that the illusion he was living in couldn't survive in your presence. He may accuse you of things that aren't true. He may create stories in his mind to justify leaving, because if he admits that the problem is within him, then he has to take responsibility for healing it. And that's not something he's always ready to do. Being on the receiving end of this projection can feel deeply painful. It can make you question yourself, your worth, your reality. But it's important to stay grounded in your knowing. You are not too much. You are not the reason for his inner war. You're simply the mirror. And sometimes, the truth in the mirror is too much for him to bear. The lesson here is about detachment. Not emotional coldness, but energetic sovereignty. You don't need to take on his pain as your own. You don't need to absorb his projections or explain yourself endlessly. You just need to stay clear in your energy. Love him? Yes, but love yourself more. Don't abandon your truth just because he can't see it right now. Over time, as the noise of projection quiets, he may begin to see you clearly again. He may recognize that the battles he fought weren't with you, but within himself. And in that moment, there's an opportunity for real healing. But it starts with you holding your center, even when he cannot. Number 6, he abandons you because he's being spiritually initiated. There's something most people don't talk about when it comes to the divine masculine. His path is sacred too. And just like the divine feminine, he has to go through his own dark night of the soul, his own spiritual initiation. And that process often begins with separation. Not because he doesn't love you, but because the connection is the very thing that activates his soul's awakening. You are the catalyst. Your presence shatters his illusions. Your love awakens his dormant spirit. And when that happens, everything that is not aligned with his truth starts to fall away. That's not just uncomfortable, it's terrifying. It feels like dying. The ego begins to resist, clinging to old beliefs, patterns, and identities. And in that storm, he pulls away. Not because he's abandoning you, but because he's being called to face himself. This initiation isn't something you can walk him through. It's deeply personal. It often involves emotional purging, spiritual questioning, and complete identity collapse. The world he once trusted no longer feels real. The truths he once clung to start to dissolve. He may feel lost, disconnected, even broken. And it's in that place of spiritual darkness that his true self begins to emerge. You might not hear from him for weeks, months, even years. But that silence is not empty. It's full of transformation. It's full of divine movement. And even if you can't see it, the universe is guiding him through every step. He's learning how to listen to his intuition. He's learning how to surrender. He's learning what real love feels like, beyond control, beyond ego, beyond fear. This is the sacred pause, the cocoon, the place where the caterpillar dissolves before becoming the butterfly. And just like the butterfly, he cannot emerge before the process is complete. He needs time, he needs space, and most importantly, he needs to learn how to rise on his own. Your role is to honor that process, to trust that what's unfolding is divine. You are not being punished, you are being invited into a deeper faith. Because the masculine doesn't return as who he was, he returns as who he was always meant to be. And when he does, it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one built on soul, truth, and divine love. Number 7. He abandons you because the timing is not aligned. Timing is everything on the twin flame journey, and often the divine masculine leaves not because the connection isn't real, but because the alignment isn't right. There may still be karmic contracts he needs to complete, lessons he hasn't yet learned, parts of himself he hasn't yet awakened, and if the timing isn't divine, the connection can't flourish, no matter how strong the love is. This is perhaps the hardest truth to accept, because you feel the connection so deeply. You know in your soul that he is part of your divine path. But what we often forget is that love alone isn't enough. Readiness matters. Alignment matters. And sometimes that means waiting. Not in passivity, not in suffering, but in trust. When he leaves, it's often because his soul knows that he's not ready to meet you fully. He may still be operating from fear, ego, or old conditioning. And rather than drag the connection down into imbalance, the universe creates space. It allows both of you to grow separately, to evolve individually, so that when you do come back together, it's not from a place of lack, but from wholeness. In this space, your job is to focus inward, to deepen your relationship with yourself, to strengthen your intuition, your purpose, your light. Because the twin flame journey is not about waiting for union. It's about becoming the person you were born to be. And that path is never wasted. Every step you take during separation is sacred. Every tear, every breakthrough, every moment of self-discovery, it all leads you closer to union. But not just union with your counterpart, union with yourself. And when that inner union is complete, the outer reflects it. The divine masculine will return when the timing is divine, when both of you have released what no longer serves you, when both of you are aligned in soul, not just in desire. And when that moment comes, it won't be rushed, it won't be forced. It will be effortless, natural, true, because divine love always returns at the perfect time, not a moment too soon, not a second too late.